Hey, this is Steve in Dallas, Texas. It's Saturday morning, my friend, and you are listening to Light Talk.
And this is Stan from Gainesville, Florida. And today on Light Talk, we are talking with three amazing themed entertainment designers, all on Light Talk.
And this is David, coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Belmont Shore in Long Beach, California. And if you don't already know, you are listening to Light Talk, and we are the Lumen Brothers. So welcome, everyone, to episode 197.
We're almost there. Almost.
That's right. What are we going to do for 200?
We're going to kill the show.
Kill the show?
That's it.
No.
I'm retiring.
Okay, you're retiring, because we still have to do our world tour. Don't forget.
Oh, that's true. We have to go to the Faroe Islands.
We got to do. We're ending it in the Faroe Islands.
That's the way to do it. I'm liking that idea.
But it's not going to happen in 3 episodes, so we're going to have to plan this out. Sorry, everyone. I know you're looking forward to it. Anyway, today we have a very special show for you with our very special guests, Paula Dinkel, Brian Gale, and Jen Goldstein.
Yeah.
Hey, how you all doing today?
Welcome.
Doing great.
Really good, thanks.
Wow. As a matter of fact, all 3 of our guests are in California. Is that right?
What's this left coast thing going on?
It's fantastic. So that means there are 4 Californians on this show today.
I'm outnumbered.
You're totally, that's so Steve. Steve's the best.
He's holding up the middle.
Before we get started, let me tell you a little bit about our guests. First, Paula. Paula Dinkel has a master's degree in lighting design and an MFA in scene design. She taught theater classes at California State University, San Bernardino, and at the University of Southern California before joining Disney in 1980. Her career in theme park lighting spanned 25 years at Imagineering, followed by other projects before returning for the Shanghai Disneyland project. Brian Gale. Brian Gale began his career with the Walt Disney Company in 1977. He spent 10 years with Disneyland Entertainment and 14 years with Walt Disney Imagineering, leaving as principal in 2002. Since leaving WDI, he has been part owner and principal with NYX Design LLC. With partners Emmanuel Treason and Abigail Rosen Holmes, he has designed projects all across the entertainment landscape. Mr. Gale's work encompasses theme park attractions, special events, parades, film premieres, and architecture, as well as corporate events, cruise ships, live theater, dance, and opera. Hey, opera, that's what I do. Mr. Gale has designed numerous productions for LA Opera, Center Theater Group, San Diego's Old Globe and San Diego Rep, as well as South Coast Rep, Cleveland Playhouse, Seattle Rep, McCarter Theater Center, New York's Public Theater. Wow, what an impressive list of theaters there. His theme park work is represented in all of the Disney theme parks worldwide, including Indiana Jones Stunt Show, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids Playground, Fantasmic for Florida and Disneyland, Tokyo Disney Sea Broadway Theater and Nighttime Spectacular, Tokyo Disneyland Electrical Parade, and Micro Adventure and Castle shows. He has also designed an electrical parade for Ocean Kingdom at Zhuhai, China, and is currently designing park-wide and nighttime spectacular lighting for another Chinese theme park currently in construction, scheduled to open in fall of 2021. And then we have Jen. Jen Goldstein is president of Radiance Lightworks, a lighting firm that specializes in lighting for live events and permanent attractions for theme parks and immersive environments. She graduated with an MFA in lighting design from UC Irvine and previously worked as a lighting designer at Visual Terrain and Walt Disney Imagineering before taking over operations of Radiance in 2013.
Wow, what a bunch of talent we got today.
Cool group.
It's a cool group.
It is.
You guys are the coolest. Well, first of all, we are setting a Light Talk record today because we have 6 people on this show today, which is, we've never done this. And the closest was at our LDI show where we had like 4 or 5, but this is really outrageous. But anyway, we've always wanted to do a show like this that brought themed entertainment designers onto the show because a lot of our students and listeners, obviously, are very interested in this realm of work. And this is something that, you know, I only worked at Disney for like a year. Right. And I think that's about it for us. I don't think anyone else has worked any sort of themed entertainment. So it's great to have the 3 of you on the show. So let's get started. Steve has our first question.
Okay, our challenge here is we have 3 people who all have to answer. So I guess we'll try in the order here of the introductions. We'll start with Paula and move to Brian perhaps, and then to Jen. So the question is, can you tell us about your backgrounds and how you moved into your respective fields of lighting?
Yeah, so my college, I went to college next door to Anaheim at Cal State Fullerton. So I knew a lot about Disney. What I didn't know, that there was such a thing called Imagineers. But while I was teaching at the University of Southern California, I started looking for some new opportunities. And I saw an ad in the Theater Crafts magazine about building a better mouse. And they were actually advertising for special effects designers, set designers, and lighting designers. So I applied, and they said no thanks. But about 4 or 5 months later, they called me up and asked me to come in for an interview, which I did. And I interviewed with Rolly Crump, and I interviewed with the head of lighting. And the next week, I was an Imagineer.
Wow, that was pretty cool.
That's quick. 1 week to become an Imagineer. Wow.
Yeah, I know.
I didn't think it was so easy. I don't think it's really that easy.
Let me ask a follow-up question here. Can you tell our audience what an Imagineer does?
Oh, an Imagineer. So of all the times I went to Disneyland as a kid, my first visit was in 1966. And I just, never even thought about who lit the rides, or I wasn't even a lighting designer yet for real, and or who lit the restaurants, or who put twinkle lights in trees. All of those things that never even occurred to me, until I became an Imagineer. And so it's our job to light all the restaurants, all the shops, all the rides, the Matterhorns, the Big Thunders, the streets, the steps, everything that a guest sees that is on stage. And that's exactly how we refer to it.
So, Brian, how did you get started?
I was in the theater in college at Cal Poly Pomona, and the technical director in our theater, Dennis Logan, had a job at Disneyland. And I became one of the techs in his little, entourage there, and I was the lighting guy at Cal Poly Pomona. And I must have done something right. So at some point he said, I've recommended you and a couple of people that work for me to go down to Disneyland and apply for a job. But before we do that, I have a call. I was working out of the union, and I went to a load-in at the Bridges Auditorium in Claremont, and Dennis had gotten one of the supervisors at Disneyland in the lighting department, in the entertainment, to on the call, and he put us together on a crew. So the guy knew me, and he said, Dennis says you should come down and apply, and if it's good enough for Dennis, it's good enough for me. You come down. And I went down there with a full beard and hair down to my shoulders, and I went and got the interview, and it says, you start tonight. This is 1977. You start tonight on grad nights. Your call's at midnight. Have your hair cut, your face shaved by the time you come back. So I worked at Disneyland Entertainment for almost 10 years, and I became the lighting guy at Entertainment at Disneyland. And at one point, the Imagineers came down and decided to demolish our theater and build Captain EO. So they said, well, we're going to demolish your theater, so we're going to build you a new one. So send us a team, and I was sent to Imagineering as the lighting guy to help design the Videopolis stage, which was our replacement for Space Mountain stage. And I designed that, and I met all the Imagineers there, and I spent about a year consulting and doing projects, entertainment-style projects, with Imagineering. And then I was in a meeting at some point, and the producer says, why don't you work for us? Why are you still working for Disneyland? And I said, well, nobody ever asked me. And he said, well, call this person. And so I transferred from Disneyland Entertainment to Walt Disney Imagineering, joined Paula and a couple of others. I think there was only 4 or 5 designers at that time, Paula, right?
That's great. That's right.
And yeah. And then at some point we were, I remember we were 22 lighting designers in one place at the Acme. Yeah.
That never happened in Orlando. I'll tell you that right
now. No.
There were 3.
Yeah. So yeah, that's how I became an Imagineer and became the themed entertainment lighting designer.
So I knew Brian at Disneyland when I was there working in their show quality and resident design group. that was assigned from Imagineering. And I had met Brian, so when it came time to be staffing up again, I recommended Brian.
Thank you.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
So, Jen, what is your story?
Yeah, so I moved to California, of course, to work in the film industry, like a lot of people here. And as soon as I got here, I think my first job was at the Laguna Beach Playhouse, where I was just helping focus some lights. And I believe I ran into Paula Jenkins.
Oh, Paula, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know how much she does at Disney anymore, but at the time she was working on one of the parades, and she was talking a little bit about it. And that was the first time I'd ever heard of theme park lighting or even the concept or idea of lighting for Disney, and I became very interested in it. And then fast forwarding to a few years later, I ended up landing at UC Irvine for a master's in lighting design. Where I really was studying theater and theater lighting, but I always had an eye on how I would make it over to the theme parks. As soon as I graduated, I was, again, very lucky to be picked up by Lisa Passamane Green at Visual Terrain, and I started working there. And that was really my first foray into the theme park world, working with her on the King Kong attraction and a lot of their other projects at Universal and around the world.
Where did you come from originally? You said you moved
I
to
came
California.
from St. Louis, Missouri.
Oh,
Yeah.
love St. Louis.
Yeah, and I think I'd been to Disney World as a kid, but certainly coming from St. Louis, I had no idea there was a theme park industry or a theme park lighting. And, I thought there was just theater lighting. And so I thought I would come to LA and work in film because I knew that was another type of lighting, but who knew? Who knew there was theme park lighting?
It's interesting. I think our students in Florida know it. There's theme park lighting,
Right?
but they don't necessarily
Yes, it's
know
Orlando's. Right.
but they don't necessarily know they could, they don't necessarily seek it. And sometimes they actually want to avoid it. It's interesting. But, since you're also accomplished and many of you have a theatrical base, here's my question for you. Could you give us a sense of the kinds of projects you do and maybe talk about the differences that you see from the traditional stage lighting work that maybe our listeners are familiar with to what you do now or what you have been doing?
My impression, and I was trained in the themed entertainment business and themed attractions by Disney. So I think the world uses that as the benchmark. But the thing, while I was at Imagineering, we always considered everything we do as a show. You're always telling a story. So the buildings have stories, the landscaping has stories, the attractions, everything is a story. So it was always better, easier to have a theatrically trained designer who knew how to tell stories and be collaborative and train them in architectural tools than the reverse. I think in the whole time I was at Imagineering, I only remember one architecturally trained designer, and the rest were all theatrical designers, theatrically trained, used to telling stories, and used to collaborating. So that those tools are essential to telling a good story. Knowing how to tell a story on stage educates you, trains you on how to tell a story on a building or in a landscape or in a ride. The best themed attractions and theme shows are just that. They're places that are stories. And what they trained us to do in Imagineering is take a place and turn it into a memory and a story and a show. So the main difference is instead of spending a few months or weeks to do a show, you'll spend a few years to do a show. And you will, in addition to designing the show, you have to design the infrastructure. You have to put in the control and all the integument that is required to put the lights where you want them to light the show and story.
Right. The things we had to learn were things like building codes, architectural fixtures, fixtures that you would never see in the theater, like mercury vapors and fluorescence, a lot of fluorescence, and think about things like, well, it's not, you can't have a lamp that has 1,000 hours. You have to have one that's going to last a really long time because the maintenance costs need to be under control. And you have to think about building codes. You have to, fortunately, we had wonderful electrical engineers and architects and all that would keep us in line and help us out with that so that we could follow the codes. And we also had a lot more money for equipment than you would have normally.
Oh, the money scale and the time scale is those two things are so different.
Yeah, and the durations are so long that you don't have the intensity that you have in the theater. Of a rehearsals for 4 weeks and up goes the curtain. For us, it's long periods of time, so you're really working an 8 to 5 kind of job a lot of the time, and we all live to go to the field. And that's where the intensity comes and the excitement.
I think you also have, certainly time is an element, budget's an element. These are things that are longer in the themed industry, but also staffing is substantially different. I think for every one person you might have on a theater project, you might have 5 to 10 on a theme park project. So you don't just report to a director, you report to a producer and a creative director, sometimes a technical liaison. And then instead of electricians, you have a general contractor, an electrical contractor, a construction foreman, and so on. So the number of players you deal with on a day-to-day basis is immense. And as a result, the communication streamlining is more complex and a really important part of the project.
The other thing that happened to us at Imagineering, and both Paul and Jen will attest to this, oftentimes the lighting designer will start on a project, and especially at Imagineering, you'll be in on the beginning. You're in the early phases. And then as you work throughout the project, people drop off. Your concept designer is gone, your architect's gone, the show writer has changed. Sometimes, there's very few people that are last till the end, till the last test and adjust is done. And the lighting designer started with it and ended with it, and then you're there with a whole bunch of people who didn't start the project. And I remember sitting in rooms with engineers and saying, "But we can't have it that way because the story is this, the story that we're trying to tell from a year ago, and you're fending off these battalions of budget people and engineering people, and the HVAC guy can't stand it, and the ride guys are in your way. But this is a story we did a year and a half ago. I talked about this with so and so's over at Universal now or wherever." It's just you're carrying this torch of this show that you're carrying that to the end, and the people a lot of time, the people in the field have nothing to do with the story you started to tell 2 years ago. It's like, but I'm telling you, this is what we wanted to do. It's like,
you guys have really sketched out the differences the way I had even better than I had hoped with this question. It makes me think about my work in consulting, where we're dealing with construction people. But you guys, and so the process seems similar to me in that. And I guess you guys really, is it fair to say that you guys straddle the world between the traditional theater and construction and architecture? That's really, you're in that sweet spot between those two fields. It's an agglomeration. Is that fair?
Especially at Imagineering, at the Disney model, that's true. I mean, you're what's really cool also is oftentimes you'll get into a conversation with a budget or a project manager or facility design manager, and at some point you'll bring up that the creative intent is this, and they'll all go, "Oh, I get it." There's, that's the ultimate veto is the show we always talk about show in every meeting, even when you're talking with the electrician and the HVAC guy, you're talking about show. The show wants to be this. This is good show. That's bad show.
So the client is the story. Is that fair to say?
Clients are the guests.
The guest experience, yeah.
But you say, as like Brian, it's the story that you hold on to, even as the players change and the budgets change and all the swirling that happens. You're sort of the anchor to keep the concept.
Oftentimes, even your show set designers have changed, and it's like
Oh yeah, even for a lighting designer, you have to plan on the fact that you might not be there for the entire project in some cases, depending on, there's almost no controllability for project schedules. Like a theater show has an opening date and almost never changes. With a lot of these projects, you don't know the opening date, and even if you do, it can change. And you might have two attractions you're opening, which means someone else is opening an attraction you've worked on for 3 to 5 years. And it's really important to document everything and communicate everything to your team so that almost any designer could take it over and run with it in a way that you'd never have to do in theater.
I have a follow-up on that. Do you have a trick by which, because of that volatility you're talking about, do you have any tricks where you can embed certain choices that you know are really important to the success so somebody can't, I hate to use the term, value engineer them out or change them when you have to move on, so you know they're going to be embedded in a way? Does that make sense?
Ooh, yeah, that's a really good question.
I haven't found that silver bullet.
Well, that's easy in theater. You do the old Harold Burrsmeyer thing, where the last thing you specify are the seats. So that way you spend all the money on everything important, and then finally, when they run out of money, so I guess you're not going to have any seats. They always seem to find the money.
Actually, yeah, a lot of that does come down to fixture specifications and paperwork, which actually Disney is phenomenal about that. I think the more specific you are with the fixtures, if you're able to address them in advance, if you're able to choose color in advance rather than waiting till the last minute and create cue sheets and focus documentation, that all helps preserve the design. A lot of projects, including some of the projects we work on, we don't create that documentation in the preliminary phases or the design phases. And so there is a chance it could get lost. And vice versa. Over the years, we've taken over a lot of attractions for Universal projects and for other clients, where another lighting firm does the early preliminary documentation and it's handed over to us, and we have literally no idea what the creative intent is. It's just a whole bunch of lights, no color, no cue sheets, no focus. So you're just trying to reverse engineer it into it, and certainly you're going to change what they intended, whether you want to or not.
I wonder, do you use the traditional architectural phase of schematic, programming schematic, design development, construction? Do you follow the architectural phasing methodology? Yes.
Yeah, mostly. They name them different things, and sometimes they combine a couple of phases, but generally, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And in the non-Disney world, where, most theme park building, they don't have an in-house design firm. So every phase is jobbed out. So you could be on either side of the street. You could be on the initial phases where you do the concept design and you're paid out, and they will go to somebody else to do the implementation and even the test and adjust. Some clients, especially in China, unnamed multiple clients that I've worked with, they take the design and say, thank you very much. And you have no idea how it looks. They take it and they install it. Even on Disney projects, you always get substitutions. The general contractor says, "Oh, that fixture is really expensive. Here's one. Here's a 2x4 troffer that will be perfectly fine for that." And you have to explain why that's not true, and fight off all these the cheapskates who want to do it cheaper and it's easier, and they don't know anything about theatrical lighting.
All right. From a design perspective, what is the process like working in the theme or corporate world? Maybe it's something that you answered some of that, just in your last question, but from strictly a design artistic perspective.
Oh, what is the process like compared to?
Yeah, the design. Yeah, from an artistic design perspective. For instance, when I was there, and again, it was for a relatively short time, a lot of it was set by marketing. By a show concept, and then it seemed like marketing sort of took over a lot of the creative parts. Is that still the case, or is there a different process now?
No, it's the case. There's a master planning group that decides, they need X kind of attraction that will have these many guests go through per hour, that needs to do this, and it needs to open then, and and this is the kind of budget. It's a C attraction or it's an E attraction. Trying to decide the scope of it, and and the story. The story is the basis of everything. And you asked earlier about of keeping the design intent. There's a writer who writes the story for the attraction, and with lighting designers and set designers can get details into that story. It helps us preserve it all the way through the attraction to the end, to the opening.
There's some theatrical-like meetings that happen during the development, if you're brought in early enough, where they talk about things they want to achieve, characters they want to feature, stories they want. At Disney, it's always, they want to include the latest IP and make sure that they're exploiting the equity of various characters that have come out. And so a lot of times the touchstone is, well, how is the story presented in the film, and how does the character shown in the film, and what part of the show do we want to, duplicate or show or whatever. But once the design starts, I haven't entertainment is different, but in the themed attractions, once that train leaves the station, it's very difficult for marketing to have any influence on how you you realize the attraction. I work a lot in entertainment and parades and shows where they have a little bit more influence further down the line. But once you start getting engineers and architects going, there's not a lot that marketing can do.
Yeah, they do tend to step out. It has been interesting to me on recent projects, and I suspect this happens less at Disney because most of the work is done internally and there's more consistency. But we've certainly been on projects where, in the end, the marketing press releases and the stories they're telling and they're selling to people to attract them to come to the attraction or come to the park don't actually match the story that you've been working towards and developing throughout the process, which is unfortunate. I think that's something that maybe speaks to a need to keep marketing involved throughout the process. But yeah, they're certainly there at the beginning and the end.
So a little change of tone here. Can we hear a little bit about some of the really weird, unusual, or memorable projects you've worked on?
My favorite one, the one that was most emotional for me, and it's in the Disney sphere, and I worked a lot with the marketing, the film production, did a lot of film premieres and things, and we did a project in New York City back when Michael Eisner ran the company. And when the Hercules film opened, we premiered it in New York in the 42nd Street Theater, in the New Amsterdam Theater. And so it was a stage show. So I designed the lighting for the stage show. And then they put on trucks the electrical parade from Disneyland that had closed. They put it on trucks and they took it to New York City. And so after the opening, after the movie premiere, immediately right outside, the electrical parade started chugging down 42nd Street. And I went to the 42nd Street box office for the New Amsterdam, because the theater is actually on the street over. So you go down and we go up to upstairs, and I got an upstairs window and leaned out the window and watched the Disneyland electrical parade, like 18 units chugging down 42nd Street. And the sound guys, they had put speakers all up and down 42nd Street, so it would play the electrical parade as if you were seeing at Disneyland. And this parade starts chugging down the street, and I look in every window, every second floor, third floor, fourth floor window was families, like the janitor from the building across the way and his kids, who will never go to a Disney park, are sitting there watching, daddies holding them in their laps, watching the electrical parades go by, Mickey Mouse waving, tears streaming down their faces. So blissfully, unbelievably happy. I'll never forget that was a thing that Disney used to do, and they don't do as much anymore. But Michael Eisner said, I'm taking the electrical parade to New York City, and it chugged and they had to chart, the electrical parade had been shut down, and so these floats had to be brought back up. They had to maintain them, they had to recharge them, they had to ship them across the country, and the last float ran out of gas, ran out of battery, just like they had to tug it. They had tugs standing by. They had to tug it over the finish line to get it to finish. But damn it, they did it, and it was it was just amazing. The power of that mouse and the Disney story, and to see those kids who would never be able to afford to go to Disney World or Disneyland to see it, that was magic. That was, to me, the best. A friend of mine who did the same thing. He did a Disney parade in Mexico City. They produced one, brought the characters down. He had the same experience, chugging down the street with floats and parade, with all the characters waving, and kids, little ragged kids in dirty feet with tears streaming down their faces. It was, it can't be beat. I mean, that was the power of the character and the Disney story.
So I have one experience that is repeated every single day at Disneyland and probably at Walt Disney World, where if you stand on Main Street, just a little bit before sunset, just getting to magic hour, and all of a sudden, boom, the lights come on. And there's twinkle lights everywhere on the buildings and rim lights. And people stand there and go, ah, the lights, the lights. It chokes me up every time. Gets me.
That's what we do.
Yeah. I know.
That's fantastic. Bring joy to people with the lights.
Yeah.
It's magic.
Makes me happy.
It is magic. I think I was in Copenhagen last year, and I went to Tivoli, and I couldn't help but thinking, as I'm walking around, I'm just going, Walt must have been here. He had to have been here because it was so. I was like smelling it, going.
Yeah, he probably was.
Did he? Yeah. He yes. probably was, because it was before Disneyland, and it's like, okay, this is the concept, right? And he just Americanized it and made it better, made it bigger.
Yes, he went to Tivoli. He also went to Efteling in Holland.
That hour you're talking about, when the sun is just like, I just did landscape lights on my house, and I love to sit on the patio when the sun is going down and we're in dusk, and the lights are already on, but you can't see them. But then all of a sudden it feels like those lights are turning on, but it's not them turning on necessarily. It's the sun going away and revealing the luminescence. It's just something magical.
Yeah, that magic hour is the best time to take photographs too, because you have enough daylight to light up the architecture, and then you have the points of light.
Yes, yeah.
Well, and the most magic is when I started at Disneyland in the late 70s, the park was closed. It closed Sunday at dusk and didn't open until Tuesday morning. So they used to do a lot of work on the Monday, on that, 40 hours. So I distinctly remember walking through New Orleans Square with nobody in the park, because the maintenance people don't come on until third shift. So at 5 or 6 o'clock, when the park has been emptied, there's nobody in it, and you're the only person walking in New Orleans Square around Tom Sawyer's Island and down, and you have the whole park to yourself. It's just, and then, as Paul said, this magic hour, and the lights come on, because they come on whether there are people there or not.
Doesn't matter.
And you think, oh, this is just for me. I'm here. There's nobody else.
Yeah, that's really special.
I thought it was a shame when they went that 7 day. They went to 7 day, a few years after that for money reasons and all, but that was pretty special.
I think in terms of, certainly in terms of a special project, back when I was at Visual Terrain, we worked on a 4D theater for the World War II Museum that talked about some of the battles in Japan and some of the losses. And that was a really special project for me, because up to that point, when we got on site, I didn't understand how you could really mix such a sensitive subject matter with themed entertainment. It seemed crazy and foreign to me. I was like, you shouldn't, dress it up or make it a show. But actually, when we got there and the show was sculpted and the scenic pieces were brought in and it was lit and the audio was added, it was a really beautiful experience, and you actually could really feel the loss, and you felt like you were taken back in time and you were there. And that was probably my favorite project, because I'd never worked on something that blended the history with the contemporary in that way, to help people understand something real.
Oh my God, Jen, you worked on that. That's the most beautiful attraction, the most unbelievably. I've seen it, Beyond All Borders.
Yeah, I actually would cry at every single rehearsal run. It was crazy.
Oh, amazing. The pre-show is amazing. The show is amazing. Oh yeah,
Oh,
so
thank
well
you.
done. So well done. Yeah. I knew the visual terrain worked on it, but I
visual
didn't know any
terrain.
person. Yeah.
Stephen
You
Young did
guys did
most of the
such a good
design,
job.
and at the time I was new, so I was
So good.
programming. But yeah, it was a great project.
And if anybody else hasn't seen it, you should see it. The whole World War II museum is amazing, but that particular show, that Tom Hanks,
Oh,
finance.
I've
that's right.
heard
Yeah,
about
that
it.
was
I have
Tom
heard about it, but I
Hanks.
haven't.
Yeah, I've
So
been
good.
wanting to go back to the museum because
So good.
I did that many years ago, and they've continued to develop the museum and other attractions since
Yeah,
then.
I took my son. I saw it when I did a Disney thing in New Orleans, and I went and I was blown away. And so I took my sons back. My whole family
Oh,
went.
no
We did a
way.
spring break there a few years ago, and I said, "You guys got to see this." And
That's
they
awesome.
were blown away. It's yeah.
Which one of you would like to tell us, or all three of you, about a dream project that you've not done yet that you really want to do?
I've already done so many dream projects, it's hard to imagine what the next one would be. Maybe the next one.
Whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever it is.
That is a good point. I think in this industry, I can think of at least 3 or 4 projects in the past that I've finished and said to myself, that was it. That's the best project I can ever do. I can ever hope to do. And if I retire now, I'll be happy. And I still have a lot of years
Well, tell
left.
us about them. Tell us about which ones are they?
Certainly, we did the lighting for the Wizarding World Nighttime Light Show, which is a castle projection mapping show, and working with Warner Brothers and the Potter properties and creating this fantastic show with Moment Factory and so many other vendors. And not to mention they added drones at the end, so it's like we couldn't have
course.
added anything else. There's drones.
Have you listened to our drone interview with Niles?
Fireworks, beautiful lighting, custom fixtures. At the end of that show, watching it on opening night, I was like, you know what? I'm good. I'm happy if this is the last thing I do.
Brian?
I have the same answer. I mean, I've worked on the dream projects. Projects come. People want you to do things. You want to do what? Okay, I'm game. Let's do that. You want to have a premiere in Central Park or on an aircraft carrier in Pearl Harbor. Well, I'm there. We'll do it. So it's not like they far outstrip my imagination. When I worked I worked with Disney Film Studio. My partners and I have done a lot of premieres for them. And we got a lot of trust where they included us in, where should we do this? How should we do that? We have an idea for this. So it was fun to be on the inception end of some of these special events. We're thinking of doing, something here. We're going to do this. We're going to open the show in 5 cities simultaneously. We want a big venue. And so we got to help come up with Central Park would be good. Let's do it there. We were going to do a premiere at Red Rocks. We were going to do one. And my partner, had influence doing the Pearl Harbor premiere on the aircraft carrier in Pearl Harbor. I mean, that's stuff that you don't get to do often. And being on the inception, being on the beginning of some of those projects where you kick around some ideas there was Disney projects I wish we had done that I was in meetings. We did, oh my God, so many. For a while there, I thought Imagineering is the world's largest theme park presentation company. We pitched so many shows, and the one, Paula, do you remember the Johnny DeSantis thing?
Yes.
The Disney on a train?
Yeah.
Oh God, that was going to be so cool.
Oh.
This is totally out of school.
And Disney's
But
America.
And you wound up doing that in Taiwan. It started with this idea. One of our producers had this idea of putting a Disney shows and attractions on a train and driving all over North America.
Wow.
And so like a Chautauqua.
Like the circus. That would have been something. Yeah.
And so I worked on this for 6 months. We did all these concepts, and we had, train cars that opened out into Ferris wheels and, rides and shows and dark rides and all this stuff. And it was a train that was going to be, it was actually wound up 2 trains, and it would take like 20 minutes to pass one point. And they ran all the numbers, and this is really cool. And it was at a time when it would have been good for the country the concept was to take Disney to people who could never come to us. And I was in the meeting, and we sat there in the meeting, and the strategic planning people said, we'll make just as much money by leaving it in the bank.
Well, that's what it was about, right? Making a little money.
That's what it was about. And they didn't say we'll lose money. They said the amount of money we can make will equal what we could make if we leave it in the bank. So there was a concept to put a Disney park on an aircraft carrier and drive it around the Pacific Rim. Frank Wells had this idea. I don't need to come up with these ideas. Frank Wells had this idea. We're going to buy an aircraft carrier, put a Disney theme park on it, and drive it all over the Pacific
insane,
Rim.
But amazing.
Oh, what
yeah,
a cool
that
idea.
now to work on that would have been amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, and we worked on that for like 3 months. Oh. We worked on one project where we had a secret room, a boiler room where all the project was done. And in the middle of the room, they put a phone booth, and the phone booth was only to be answered by the guy who was buying all the land to do this project. So we were designing this project, and they had to keep a secret because they didn't want anybody to know that Disney wanted to build a theme park in this particular place, because then they wouldn't sell us the land, or it would cost a lot of money.
I know that story.
Skunk Works. It was amazing. And we worked on that one, and it fell through.
Oh, my God.
And we worked on Disney's America, and we didn't get to see that one go
Disney's
through.
America. Yeah. I was on 4 or 5 in a row, and I thought it was me. It's like 4 or 5 that got canceled.
I know. I had 3 in a row with Tomorrowland 2055, and then DMSE, and then Disney's America. And then I got Disney Quest. And Disney Quest, I think, was probably one of my most exciting.
That was so fun. That such a cool idea.
So for our young designers out there, is there any advice that you have for them to prepare to work in themed entertainment?
Don't. It's heartache and pain.
Oh, no, it's
you
not.
You guys sound pretty happy for the heartache and pain.
It.
I don't know.
Yeah, they survived it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wrote some notes about it. So that would be, you need to be in the right place at the right time with the right attitude and the right skills.
Sounds like theater.
Yeah.
Yes.
Beautiful.
And so they should look into the Themed Entertainment Association. They need to network. They need to take advantage of free things like Imagineering in a Box, which is available on the internet. They should learn about architectural lighting, like look into joining the Illuminating Engineering Society. Yep. And you need diverse experience and skills on your resume, and you need to be easy to work with.
I have to call Paula out here a little bit, though. If you go back and listen to this tape again, start at the beginning. And when we ask her, what does an Imagineering person do? She talks about lights and trees, fixtures. Whoa, we just talked about buying an aircraft carrier. We just talked about doing a train across North America. This is an amazing job the 3 of you guys have.
That's right. It is.
It was a great career. Totally. Yeah, I got to live in Shanghai for 3.5 years. I got to live in Paris.
Wow.
I know.
Yeah, if you love traveling.
I got to live in Florida.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There's a downside.
Really sorry about that.
In Chicago.
It's not so bad. It's not
awful.
So bad.
I grew up there. I know.
We're just a lawless state. It's okay.
Lawless state. That's a whole nother story.
Well, before we sign off here, I really have to say that I'm so honored to work with incredibly talented people, artists. They're really great, which is a huge part of the magic we make. The magic's really about the people and the guests, the Imagineers, and the cast members, too.
Well, listen, Brian, Jen, Paula, thank you so much for being on Light Talk with us today. It was great for you to take the time to talk about your work. And you've all had great careers, and keep it up. I mean, we want to see more work from you. And if you have any interesting projects, send it to us.
Yeah, we'll publicize it for sure. Absolutely.
Post them on our Facebook page. We actually have a Facebook page.
And, I'm going to add you right now.
Please add us. Please add us.
Yeah, definitely.
We have a lot of really interesting people on that page. So, but anyway, thanks again. It was great to have you here, and good luck to the 3 of you. Stay healthy,
yes,
all right?
Thank you.
Yeah,
This is fun.
It was a blast.
Well, the rocking sounds of the Luminoids tells us that once again you've spent another morning listening to Light Talk. You can hear our show on Spotify, iTunes, Google, YouTube, livedesignonline.com, and just about every podcast site out there. Check out our website on lighttalk.org for future guests, and be sure to follow us on Facebook and subscribe to the podcast. That way you will not miss a second of Light Talk Insanity.
Normally, no guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast, but today, everything was true. However,
But if you do decide to litigate us, the law firm of Flecht, Flucht, Flare, and Glare, and their paralegal Snoot, who hangs out at Magic Hour, will defend us until our retirement funds are depleted.
Light Talk is written and produced by the Lumen Brothers, coming to you from Long Beach, Gainesville, and from deep in the heart of Texas.
And be sure to join us next week when we welcome director-designer Thaddeus Strasburger to Light Talk.
Light Talk, broadcasting questionable Lumen knowledge and humor around the world.
So we'll see you all next Saturday morning. Bye-bye from Light Talk.
Thanks, all of you.
Toodles.
Thank you for coming.